depths of night, when shadows stretch and the world falls silent, there exists a presence that thrives in the dark. It is not merely a figment of our imagination, nor is it confined to the pages of horror novels. This entity, lurking just beyond the edge of our consciousness, feeds on something very primal: fear. Fear is a powerful emotion. It seeps into our bones, grips our heart, and clouds our thoughts. It is a response deeply rooted in our survival instinct, a mechanism designed to protect us against threats. But what if, instead of being our protector, fear became our captor? What if there were an entity that not only observed our fears, but thrived upon them? Imagine it, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment when your heart races, when your breath quickens, and when the darkness seems to close in. This entity is often described in folklore and urban legends, taking different forms in various cultures. It manifests as a shadowy figure, a ghostly apparition, or even a whisper in the dark, beckoning you to confront the very thing that terrifies you. Some call it the boogeyman, others refer to it as a wraith or a demon. Regardless of the name, one thing remains constant. It draws power from your fear, growing stronger each time you succumb to its influence. You may wonder, how does it do this? The answer lies within the nature of fear itself. Fear can be irrational, often taking us hostage with thoughts of the unknown. It can magnify the simplest of worries into insurmountable obstacles. Picture a child afraid of the dark, convinced that monsters lurk beneath the bed. The more they focus on that fear, the more real it becomes, morphing into something tangible, something that can be fed upon. As adults, we too have our own fears: fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. These fears can manifest in our minds like shadows in a dimly lit room, growing larger and more menacing the longer we dwell on them. The entity that feeds on this fear thrives in such moments, wrapping its tendrils around our thoughts, amplifying our worries until we are paralyzed by anxiety. Consider the classic tale of the haunted house. Time and again, we hear stories of families moving into a new home, only to be met with inexplicable phenomena. Doors creaking open on their own, cold drafts sweeping through rooms, whispers echoing in the silence. Each night, the sense of dread builds, feeding the unseen presence that feeds on their fear. What was once a quaint little house becomes a prison, each creak of the floorboards a reminder of the entity lurking, waiting to devour their terror. But fear is not just an experience confined to the physical realm. It exists in our psyche as well. The entity thrives in our dreams, where the line between reality and imagination blurs. Nightmares, those haunting fragments of our deepest fears, are fertile ground for this entity. Each scream, each sense of panic, serves as a banquet, nourishing it, allowing it to grow and spread its influence over our waking lives. In literature and cinema, this concept is often explored. Think of the horror movies that chill you to the bone, where characters are hunted by an unseen force, their fears materializing before them. Each encounter elevates the tension, and with each scream, The audience feels the weight of that fear, creating an electric atmosphere. The entity becomes a mirror reflecting our own insecurities and fears back at us, forcing us to confront what we might otherwise ignore. But what if we could turn the tables? What if we could confront this entity, strip it of its power? To do so, we must first understand the nature of fear itself. Fear often thrives in the absence of understanding. The unknown is a fertile ground for anxiety, allowing the entity to take root. By shining a light on our fears, we can begin to diminish their hold over us. Take, for instance, the fear of public speaking, a common anxiety that grips many. When faced with the prospect of speaking in front of an audience, the heart races, palms sweat, and visions of failure cloud the mind. The entity feasts on these feelings, growing bolder with each anxious thought. However, by confronting this fear, head-on preparing, practicing, and visualizing success, we can weaken its grip. The entity, starved of its primary food source, begins to wither. Similarly, we can approach our fears as we would a dark room. When we enter, the shadows may loom large, but the moment we turn on the light, they retreat. Our fears become less daunting when we acknowledge them, dissecting them for what they truly are. By sharing these fears with others, we strip the entity of its power, revealing it for the illusion it often is. Yet there are those who become consumed by their fears, allowing the entity to take complete control. They isolate themselves, avoiding situations that could trigger anxiety. This avoidance only serves to strengthen the entity's hold, creating a cycle of fear that becomes increasingly difficult to break. It can become a habit. The more we avoid, the more we fear, and the more we fear, the more we avoid. In some cases, those who are deeply affected by fear may find themselves in a state of paralysis, unable to act or make decisions. This is where the entity thrives, feasting on the inertia, the stagnation of spirit. It whispers insidious thoughts. What if you fail? What if you are not good enough? Each thought, each moment of doubt, is like a banquet laid out for the entity, allowing it to grow larger, more menacing. But what if we could harness this fear instead? What if we could transform it into a source of strength? Fear can be a powerful motivator, a catalyst for action. Many have turned their fears into fuel, using the energy that comes from anxiety to push through challenges. This is where courage lies, not in the absence of fear, but in the ability to confront it, to acknowledge its presence, without letting it dictate our lives. The entity that feeds on fear may always linger in the shadows, but we have the capacity to shine a light upon it. By recognizing our fears, we begin to take the power back. We can learn to walk alongside our fears, rather than allowing them to control us. In the end, the entity that feeds on your fear thrives not because it is stronger, but because we often allow it to be. It preys on our insecurities and our doubts, whispering lies that can feel all too real. But by understanding fear, confronting it, and turning it into something constructive, we can diminish its power. So the next time you feel that familiar chill creeping down your spine, remember that fear is a natural part of being human. Acknowledge it, but do not let it consume you. The shadows may stretch, and the entity may lurk, but you have the light within you to banish it back into the abyss. Embrace your fears, confront them, and watch as the entity weakens, shrinks, and ultimately fades away. The darkness may always be there, but so too is the light. And in the battle between fear and courage, it's the light that will ultimately triumph.